What's up, everybody? Welcome to the CanesInSight Daily Podcast, powered by Andrade and Levine Accident Attorneys. It's Breakfast with the Canes. It is Saturday. I am in lovely Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, dropping my son off for camp. I just woke him up. I started this podcast, so he's grilling me. But we got a lot to talk about here. Xavier Lucas lawsuit finally filed. Wisconsin goes ahead and sues Miami. I don't think it's anything Canes fans need to lose a second of sleep over, but I'll get into why in a second. Also, Jasen Lopez, one of my favorite players in the class, gets an offer in basketball from the Miami Hurricanes. He's officially visiting this weekend. Would love to add that player. I think he's absolutely an elite talent. And we've been talking about him for a while because we think he is the real deal. Pete would be hopping in. He's in. He's himself out of Miami, but having some issues. So we're rolling solo here. But some folks who won't have issues and are higher Wisconsin hires, that is Andrade and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you or someone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life with Andrade and Levine. Got a lot of folks popping in. Good morning. It is breakfast time with the Canes. A lot going on here. So the Wisconsin lawsuit, I've read through the complaint now, which was filed in Wisconsin state court. And let me give you some disclaimers at the top, which is the classic lawyer move, but you got to start with the disclaimers, right? So first of all, yes, I'm an attorney. I've been practicing for 15 years. Yes, I was educated by a school that is several tiers above University of Wisconsin-Madison. But this is, not my specialty. I know tortious interference, which is the claim here, but I do financial lines insurance coverage, which is a very technical thing. I haven't reviewed the documents aside from the complaint. I haven't talked to the people involved. So, this is going to be a very surface level analysis because the only people that can really tell you what's going on are the people involved in the case. And even then, they still have things that they don't know and they need to find out. But just some sort of big picture thoughts from a Canes fan. I'll start with the things that are most important to football fans, Miami Hurricane football fans. First one is, I don't see anything in this complaint that's going to impact Xavier Lucas's ability to line up at cornerback for the Miami Hurricanes against Notre Dame. That's kind of the most important thing of this whole deal. And I don't see anything that even remotely approaches prohibiting him from doing that. Number one, a specific performance of personal services. In other words, a civil lawsuit basically saying you have to perform in this way with your personal services, like playing football. That is long been basically, with certain exceptions, you can't do that. It's like slavery. You can't just say, hey, you have to perform here. So they didn't even try to do that in this lawsuit. They're not saying, like, none of the things they're asking for Wisconsin involves Xavier Lucas playing football for Wisconsin. As far as prohibiting him from playing for Miami, there's nothing really in the lawsuit about that. And the funny thing about the lawsuits, the thing that jumped out to me right away is they continuously reference NCAA portal rules. So NCAA has said they're out of it. They're not involved. And the NCAA, of course, is the one that has the ability to affect the eligibility of Xavier Lucas. They've said they're not involved already from the beginning. The lawsuit from Wisconsin talks about, hey, you can't talk to people when they're in the portal, when they're not in the portal. He enrolled in Miami without even entering the portal. We didn't even enter his name. What they don't mention is that the NCAA rules required them to enter his name when he asked them to. They just skipped that whole part. So the treatment of NCAA rules in the complaint is kind of silly. Because they don't mention that they broke NCAA rules by not entering with the portal. So they're like, oh, Miami talked to him in late December when he wasn't in the portal after the deadline. Well, you didn't put him in the portal before the deadline, even though you were supposed to within a lot of period of time when he gave you his name. So the treatment of NCAA rules in the complaint is bizarre, and I guarantee you UM's going to call it out loudly on their response. So bottom line is Xavier Lucas, barring anything weird that we don't foresee here, is going to be playing cornerback for the University of Miami and will be significantly better than anybody Wisconsin trouts out there on their entire football team. So that's the good news on that. As far as like Miami paying money, I don't see that either. That's, to me, the biggest question about this whole lawsuit, which is what are the damages? This is the thing. A lot of times with when you meet with a client, you want to know what's the point of this lawsuit. If you're representing a plaintiff, why are you suing? Like, what's the goal here? What's the strategy? What are you trying to obtain? What's the remedy? Do you want to stop something from happening? Do you want an injunction? Do you want, damages? What kind of damages? What do you want? So it's like here, I don't know what the damages are for Wisconsin. And here's what I mean. Wisconsin is saying that Xavier Lucas signed an NIL contract, really 2 NIL contracts, one with the collective, which is kind of like what we've seen already for years, and then one memorandum of understanding with the school for rev share. Remember, this is before the settlement was approved, well before the settlement was approved, that allows rev share. Direct, and the school's rev share meaning the school paying the players directly out of their own revenue. So what Wisconsin's saying is we were deprived of the use of Xavier Lucas's NIL, meaning his ability to be in commercials and sell products. I guess I don't know what the NIL value was. Sell jerseys. I don't know if they were planning to sell Xavier Lucas jerseys. Cornerbacks typically don't sell a lot of jerseys unless they're Deion Sanders. So the NIL thing is a farce. Wisconsin paid him to play football. Everybody knows that Wisconsin paid him to play football. Now, here's the interesting part is that when the NCAA or the schools in general are fighting with antitrust plaintiffs, right? All these lawsuits that are blowing up the NCAA model, and where the NCAA, by the way, has lost every single time, beaten pillar to post, just have to pay $1 billion in what they consider a win with the House settlement. The reason they keep losing those battles is because everybody knows this is pay for play. It's a farce. So Wisconsin has to walk a fine line here where they say, yeah, we were damaged because Xavier Lucas didn't come to our school, but it wasn't because he can't play football. It's because we couldn't sell his NIL. But then they also have references in the complaint to basically the sleight of hand is, well, we couldn't use his NIL because he wasn't playing football. But it's really pay for play. And again, this lawsuit and other, people who follow this stuff way closely than I do, more closely than I do on a national level, sports law people, professors who cover the antitrust stuff. That's what they seize on as well is how do you say that this is not pay for play and this is not like an employee breaching his contract and getting tampered with by another company when you're not treating them like employees? Because the truth is it's all a farce. And the NCAA has to walk in this case, Wisconsin, a member school, with support from the Big Ten Conference, has to walk a very fine line. And I don't see how they do that here. So the idea of Miami paying a lot of money, I don't see that at all either. Another big picture thought I want to get to, and this is, I guess, meaningful, is, Big Ten is supporting Wisconsin's lawsuit. Big Ten's not happy about what's happening here with Xavier Lucas. So, does that impact Miami's ability to join the Big Ten later? That could be a real thing. I'm not, I know Miami met the Big Ten's academic criteria to get in there. Miami has not had an underage sex abuse scandal. So maybe by that standpoint, they're not Big Ten caliber because every school in the Big Ten seems to have that kind of scandal. Miami hasn't. So maybe we're not Big Ten material in that way. I personally could care less. I hate the conference, have my entire life. And if Miami's doing what we're supposed to do on the field, they're a bigger brand than all that. They're their own brand. We were an independent when we made it happen. So it's more about Miami kind of taking care of business on the field with players like Xavier Lucas, who, again, is better than anybody on Wisconsin's roster, which, by the way, Wisconsin in the complaint said that they were going to pay him one of the biggest contracts they've ever signed to a player, that he was a cornerstone player, which I was interesting just to hear. But we know that that's why they're fighting, because this guy's a first-round corner and he's wearing orange and green. Just more kind of instant reaction. The first thing the lawyers are going to do here on the Miami side, I'm sure, is, first of all, they're trying to figure out whether they have base to dismiss it just on its face before you even get to discovery and sort of the fact-finding part. Also, where the lawsuit takes place. So the lawsuit was filed in Wisconsin State Court. If you guys have seen that show, Making a Murderer, Wisconsin State Court's kind of a clown show. It's a backwoods out there. So just watch that documentary and you can see how much of a circus it is. So you don't want to necessarily be out there. So the question is, can you move the venue to South Florida, of course, where the University of Miami is? Do you transfer it at least to federal court? It's kind of unclear how much money's at issue here. If you wanted to move it to federal court, there need to be over $75,000 at issue. And Wisconsin doesn't say how much money's at issue because of the damages thing I discussed a second ago, which that might be what Miami kind of digs into. Hey, what are the damages here? Tell us what the damages are so we can find out if we can even remove this. So these are certain things, remove meaning take it to federal court. These are some of the initial things. But again, the people that know are the ones that have all the documents, that are reviewing it, that are spending hours and hours and hundreds of thousands of dollars in billing trying to figure this one out. So I'm not trying to pretend that I have all the answers here. I'm more focused on the big picture strategy of it. And to me, what I get from this is two things. Number one, the contract I call it a contract. That's what they call it in the complaint. It's not a contract. The memorandum of understanding, the MOU between Wisconsin and Xavier Lucas to pay him money directly was contingent on the House settlement. That's why you're seeing the lawsuit now, because the House settlement was just approved. So then the House settlement is that settlement you've been reading about that's basically allowing schools to pay players directly. So because that was approved by a court, now you're seeing that lawsuit. When Xavier Lucas signed that memorandum of understanding with Wisconsin directly, there was no House settlement approval. So everything was contingent. It was not a contract. MOUs generally are not enforceable contracts. There's conditions where they can be. Again, this is the stuff that they're trying to figure out, but more likely than not, it's not enforceable, at least generally. So I think part of this is the Big Ten and Wisconsin trying to establish in court, both through the tortious interference claim, and they have a separate declaratory judgment claim, which is like basically telling the court to declare something. I think they want to establish this MOU that I'm sure a ton of players besides Xavier Lucas signed with Big Ten schools that use the Big Ten template is an enforceable contract. So they want to, I think, establish that for precedent purposes going forward. They also probably want discovery. So the factual story that we learn more about here as you read this complaint is, let me pull up my notes, but that basically, I guess, they said everything was good with Xavier Lucas. He was cutting commercials. He was asking for his jersey number or whatever. And then boom, on December 17th, asked to be in the portal, and he cited a personal family reason. And then he went dark. His high school coach went dark. His mom went dark. According to Wisconsin, a relative of Xavier Lucas, I don't know if this is someone who played for Wisconsin or what, basically reached out to Wisconsin and said, no, he jumped in the portal for, a non-family matter. And Miami's trying to, pay him more money, basically. And by the way, Miami visited him at his house. Doesn't say the date. This could have been very well into this process, if it's even true. And said Miami visited him at his house, and I guess an alumnus, former player, visited as well. That's what is alleged in the complaint. No timeline given as to whether that's way after he has to be in the portal or what. And Wisconsin refused to put him in the portal or what it was. So that's the factual claim. They also say it's not an isolated event. So here's what they said here. Miami's conduct towards Xavier Lucas was, and they call him Student Athlete A, was not an isolated event, but part of a broader pattern of Miami tampering with football student athletes. For example, in late 2024, Miami continued to recruit a second student athlete, even though he had already made a written commitment to another D1 school in late 2024, and which commitment had been reflected in the transfer portal. Yeah, so I'm not sure what that's all about. Again, it's just kind of the color you see in these complaints sometimes, but it gives you a clue where the discovery would be if this proceeds. Discovery meaning getting people to make statements under penalty of perjury, getting documents from people, records, etc. Now, the truth is, Wisconsin just got hit with recruiting violations a week ago. Tanner Mordecai was clearly tampered with by Wisconsin. So if they go down that road, they're exposing themselves to who knows what. What that tells me is this, and again, this is my speculation on what's going on here. And I don't know this to be the case. It's my speculation. I think, number one, yes, they want to get the contract the MOU treated as a contract, just for broader purposes of the Big Ten. And then I think they want testimony about kind of what they consider tampering. So not really to embarrass Miami. And again, I think they're going to end up, if they do go down this road, they're going to end up looking bad because of what we know about them. They literally just got hit for recruiting violations last week. But beyond that, I think they want to go to, they meaning the Big Ten, kind of the bigger picture here, to go to Congress and say, what a mess we got here, man. We got testimony about this happening and that happening. This thing's a circus. Congress, we need you to pass a law allowing the NCAA and the schools to continue to commit antitrust violations and have an exemption, right? We want to be exempt from the law, protect us from the law, because you're Congress, you can make the laws, and allow us to continue to operate the way we're going to operate, basically under the terms of this House settlement, and do what we do, not treat the players like employees, give them 20% instead of 50%, have our own enforcement arm, and basically act as a trust, an illegal trust. So that's the end game here. It's always been the end game is Congress acting, because in courts under the existing laws, this settlement, this new framework of college football, but with paying the players, 22% of the revenue, where other sports get 50, not being treated as employees, no collective bargaining. It's all a facade. Pretending something's NIL when it's really paid for play. It's all a facade. So they ultimately need Congress to intervene here. And I think this is my speculation. I think this is just part of that PR campaign to put something in front of Congress and say, hey, this is a mess. We need you to come and fix it. that's what I think is ultimately going to happen. But bottom line is Xavier Lucas, unless he gets hurt or something happens, is going to be playing football for the Miami Hurricanes. Wisconsin's going to be mediocre and cold, and that's kind of where it's at, man. So that's the story. So yeah, that's what I got right now on that part. Pac Mahomes saying, "Good morning, tall boys from Naples." Yeah, shout out to Naples. Seat to table, my favorite spot on the map right now. I got to go back. And Naples is, if I move from Miami, I'm going to Naples, man. Catch some snook. Kane grad, probably also get heat off them for their recruiting violations. Yeah, they, like I said, they just got their recruiting violations. I mean, they're a mess. I mean, this is the Big Ten. The Big Ten's the Big Ten, from a scandal perspective, has been a stain on college football. That, they just did a documentary about Ohio State and their sex scandal. I mean, it's like you have to have a sex scandal to be involved in the Big Ten, apparently. So they've been a cancer on college football, quite frankly, going back to Sandusky, Michigan State. I mean, you name it, it's pretty grotesque. So, what can I say other than these guys are usually in the press for the wrong reasons, and now they're trying to drag Miami into it because Miami gets headlines. This is the way it had to be, with Miami being on the front line of all this stuff. That's how it always is. Bottom line is, again, we have a first-round cornerback lining up. So not too worried about what a relevant program like Wisconsin that is heading in the opposite direction. I can't tell you 3 players on Wisconsin right now, but good luck to them as they freeze and go 500 or worse. That dude, appreciate you. Shout out to Vaughn. So yeah, we got football stuff to talk about here. So we got good morning from all across the country, man. Appreciate you guys. Any Philly Canes out here? I'm in Philly right now, downtown. I'm liking it so far. Just touched down. So looking forward to walking around, getting around here. But wanted to talk about some football stuff. And one of my favorite players on the planet in terms of this high school class is on campus right now in Coral Gables. And there's been a pretty big development in his recruiting. Trevon Welcome saying, D-Money, just heard someone say Wingo's the best receiver in Florida over Lopez. I mean, look, I haven't seen Wingo in person. I know, he's fairly highly rated. I can tell you that certainly on our board, Jasen Lopez is higher rated. And, what I would say about Jasen Lopez playing in South Florida against significantly better competition than Wingo is that he is one of the most dominant athletes that we've seen down here in years. So let me pull up the film on our boy Jasen Lopez while I talk about him. But Jasen Lopez, again, one of my favorite players in the country. I saw someone on Twitter saying, like, oh, you guys are just talking about Jasen Lopez now because he's visiting. I mean, pretty sure we did a full-length video on him in February, and those who listen to the show know we've been saying he's the best receiver in South Florida for a while, or certainly one of the best players in South Florida, one of the best players in the country, in my view. So nothing new for me with this guy. He's been one of the best, and we've been talking about him forever. Looking at the one-handed catch there. So Jasen Lopez, two-sport athlete, and kind of like the highest level two-sport athlete that you can imagine. This is a guy with 25, this is last year's stats, 25 points per game in basketball at Chaminade. On the football field, 1,300 receiving yards, 14 touchdowns. 1,300 receiving yards. This is not like a gimmick offense. Just to give you some perspective, Jeremiah Smith, the best player that I've ever seen, pretty much, or one of the best players I've ever seen, he had under 1,100 yards as a junior in this offense. This guy had 1,300 while going and playing basketball and getting 25 points per game on the hardwood. He's a legitimate basketball recruit, P4, dunks on people in the half court. Look at him after the catch here. I saw him in camp. He demolished everybody in camp. We wrote about it on CanesInSight.com. To me, this guy has all the tools athletically, mentally, instincts-wise, production-wise. Here you see him running with the football. To me, to be an all-America type player in college, there's going to be Restrepo comparisons. You see him wearing the number 7. They call him J-Rock. Comparing him to Restrepo, he's a little taller than Restrepo. Different kind of Restrepo is very good, like kind of running back type of athlete, whereas this guy's a basketball player, an elite one. So he has that aspect to him. Canes 230, appreciate your support. He says, I'm a South Florida high school football coach. This is exhibit 1 for not sending players to Wisconsin. Yeah, you cannot send players to Wisconsin after this. And I'm trying to know who's trying to cause all these problems with Miami, who this player is. But anyways, yeah, Wisconsin, to send a player to freeze and get treated like that, Now, he was not named in the lawsuit, but obviously he's going to have to probably testify and stuff. It's a pain in his butt when he just wants to play football and beat Notre Dame. But here you go. You see Jasen Lopez. One thing that jumps out to me, he's running all kinds of routes. He is, catching the ball with his hands. He's going inside, outside. He's got releases. Look at the separation he generates. Again, this is he's going against real players, makes a miss after the catch. He went to the Under Armour camp and he was beating everybody. I mean, everything that you want to see on his film is there. And then athletically, when you watch his basketball highlights, which I'll pull up in a second, I mean, this guy's dunking on people. You know what I mean? Like, this guy's dunking on people in the half court as a 5'11" Cuban dude. So we're talking about rare, I think he's Cuban, rare athleticism. There you see, this is like a Restrepo type play right here. You do see hints of Restrepo in his run after catch. And of course, the number 7 and all that kind of stuff. But I think the thing that he has over Restrepo, there you saw how many times Restrepo run that exact route. The thing I would say he has over Restrepo, now, he's not going to run a 4.8. He ran at the Under Armour camp. I don't know exactly what he ran, but it was not 4.8. Certainly, I think he's probably going to be like a 4.5 guy. But look at that right there. This guy's ball skills as a top basketball player, not just someone who plays for fun, but a top basketball player, I think makes him unique. I mean, again, 25. I as you guys know, I always track like multi-sport athletes. That's one of my kind of things. I believe out of the 30-something receivers that were drafted, it's almost like more than 65, 70% of them play basketball. So that's a clear correlation between that position and that sport. There you see him returning a punt to the house. But, not only does he play basketball, he's a big-time player at basketball. That's what I think makes him unique. I cannot remember a basketball recruit with 25 points per game here at a school like Chaminade that we've been after. This guy's, again, legitimate Power 4 basketball player. And I'm kind of bearing the lead. Miami offered him in basketball on his visit. That was going to be the big issue with his recruitment, that, those questions about where he fits into Miami's basketball program. And Miami just offered him in basketball, and he posted it on his Instagram. Again, that's why I need Pete here to kind of feed me the leads. But that is the lead of the story, is that he did get that basketball offer. So that's going to greatly increase our chances of landing this player who, Mario Cristobal is obsessed about and thinks he's a big time elite dude. An opinion I share. 4-star on the composite. I think he's a 3-star in 247. We talked about Darian Coleman. I made a post on the side. We can talk about that, but there's some rankings I can defend of 247. There's some that I can't defend. Joel Irvin, that made no sense. He's now been upgraded to a 4-star. Ben Congdon, I couldn't defend that one. That made no sense to me for him being a 3-star with his traits. He is now a 4-star player. Jasen Lopez, the only place that has him as a 3-star, I think, is 247. And I think that's part of the reason why they did so bad in the draft this year compared to some of the other recruiting services. Is this guy is, if I had to bet on a player that's going to be 1,000-yard player, all-conference type player, potentially an All-America player in this class, it's hard to bet against someone with this kind of productivity, this kind of athletic pedigree, the versatile skill set, the ability to go to camps and dominate. I mean, think of the work ethic you have to be, let's say, 5'11", and be a legitimate Power 4 athlete in football and basketball. Think of first of all, the athleticism you need to have and the work ethic you need to have to do that. There you see him running the ball. Porch Kane, his 4,000 yards in his career. Let me get to some questions here, because I've been talking for a minute here. I need a break. Pete, man, I miss you. Get well soon. Pete's over there trying to figure out his internet in some random hotel in different country. Hassan from Glass City. Lopez would be a good get, but if Miami missed out on Keys or Russell, would be a major failure. Yeah, I agree with this. And so I think part of the reason why some people, like again on Twitter, some people thought, oh, why are you talking about Lopez now? Like we haven't been talking about him for months. The perception from some people is like, oh, you're talking about Lopez because Keys and Russell might go elsewhere. First of all, I sense we talked about the bank. I think Miami thinks they're going to get at least 1 or 2 of those guys when it's all said and done. So they're not doing damage control on that or anything. But yeah, I agree. If you don't get a Keys or a Russell, and I think Keys is the best player of the all the guys talking about, yeah, this is not where you need to be unless you replace them with someone that we're not talking about. That's not big time receiver recruiting if you can't get those guys. So yeah, of course, I would agree with that. Separate from that, you have this guy on campus right now, and you have to get this player. If this guy goes to FSU and is a first team All-American like Restrepo was, and he's not a Cane, you're going to be slapping yourself in the face. So, I think By the way, look at the route running of this guy. He did this in camp all day. I mean, his separation is outstanding, whether it's zone, guys playing off, guys playing in his face. He's been every single type of coverage. He just has great feet, great feel. You see him right there. Again, that is a Restrepo kind of similarity, just that feel for the game, feel for the soft spots in the zone, the ability to be quarterback friendly, come back to the ball. I mean, again, just if you've been watching this tape while I've been talking, look at him. You see how he catches the ball with his hands without slowing down. It's these little things that this guy, as someone who's playing basketball at a high level, he's not even playing receiver full-time, working on his game full-time. He does so many little things well and such a diversity of things well. It is just outstanding. I mean, I think this guy can help us immediately. I couldn't be a bigger fan of the player. Gio asks, is he 5'10"? Yeah, he's 5'10". He's taller than Restrepo. Restrepo's heavier. Now, Lopez is actually not, Vance Spafford, who's like a speedster, 4'3", he's actually skinny and 5'10", but he's obviously super fast. Lopez is not like a 4'3" guy. He's probably a 4'5" guy, but he's strong. He's not like Restrepo's like 210. He's like a running back. This guy will be like a 195 kind of guy, I think, by the time he's at like 5'11", 195 is my guess of what he'll be at Miami. 4'5" is what I'd say you put his dimensions at. So he's not going to be like plus in those categories, but he's not going to be below par in those categories. And then the athleticism, the instincts, the versatility, just kind of the athletic playmaker feel, I mean, is elite. You see him returning kicks or punts. You've seen him running the ball. You've seen him catching 1,300 yards worth of receiving, which again is, Jojo Trader, I think, had like 700 at Chaminade his senior year, maybe 800. Jeremiah Smith, literally the best prospect I've seen since Andre Johnson at that position. 1,100 at that same age. This is unreal, the level of production that you get from Lopez. Porch Kane noting that Jasen Lopez has 4,000 plus yards in his career because he also played at True North. He transferred to Chaminade last year. He was at True North before that. And True North, he was pumping out 1,200 yard seasons and 25, 29 point per game seasons. So this guy is just an unbelievable player. Tim saying Russell's out. Pretty obvious he's going anywhere but here. I think Russell will commit probably to LSU. But then who knows? I think Miami, their view is we're going to have a great season. And I think players are going to be begging to come here. So Lord Baconton, my guy, I always appreciate your contribution. Saints 247 was dead last on draft projections this year, and Rivals was number 1. I believe On 3 was Rivals was definitely ahead of 247. I think On 3 was ahead, but now On 3 and Rivals are merging. So either way, that's going to be the top one. They do have him as a, On 3 has him as a pretty high 4-star, as does Rivals. I think everybody pretty much has him as a 4-star, except for 247. D saying, kind of reminds me of Trevor Pena. That's the very productive receiver for Syracuse. This is the golden age of Hispanic receivers, man. I never thought I'd see the day with some of these guys. But look, here you go. St. Thomas Aquinas. You see the route running. You see him, dragging guys for a first down. Let's see here. Contested catch. What jumps out to me from this video, aside from the fact that we've been watching this guy's highlights for like 10 minutes, is every time you look at these highlights, it's a different thing. If you looked at Mark Pope's highlights, for example, Mark Pope had a lot going for him. He ran a 10.6. He was super fast. He had some natural ability. But when you watch Mark Pope's highlights in high school, everything was straight down the field, straight lines, old, like just primitive in his route running. Like it was not sophisticated, like what you see here with the Jasen Lopez. Reminds me of Dalen Upshaw last year. Dalen Upshaw, another guy who was super productive last year. You watch Dalen Upshaw's film. He's running all kinds of routes. He's breaking tackles. He's doing all kinds of things. So Dalen Upshaw is another one that's just a pure receiver, pure football player. With Lopez, I think you get the added ingredient of just the great athleticism. Eddie Delva said he met Kyle Wright at the Cal game. Met him 30 minutes after meeting me. 6'4" and well built. Shout out, man. I'm glad to see you still supporting the Canes. I know you had a tough time. Like I said, I've criticized him myself. I never played quarterback for Miami, so he's the one that actually was out there taking blows and playing the game. So shout out to Kyle Wright. Really shout out to anybody who's ever played for the University of Miami. Wait, someone's saying there's no sound. Are you guys getting sound on this? I'm talking for 30 minutes, so I hope there's sound. Yeah, okay, sound good. Yeah, Missy Goodwin, maybe got to work on your settings there. The one Restrepo, there's multiple Restrepo comparisons, but one Restrepo comparison I could say is when you watch these highlights. And again, this St. Thomas Aquinas, he's bouncing off tackles, man. This guy is very good after the catch in terms of contact, short passes, busting out tackles. So when you combine that, making guys miss, when you combine that with the fact that he runs routes at an elite level, and then he can go up and get it because he's a basketball player. I mean, what am I missing here in this profile when you talk about one of the best players at receiver in America? Again, when I say things like that, people are like, oh, you're just saying that because, we're not getting these other guys. Miami expects to get these other guys, at least one of them. So, if they don't get it, it'll be a failure. I know it. Everybody knows it. They got to get these other dudes. If they don't get a Calvin Russell or Tristan Keys or the equivalent kind of guy, they got a problem. So that's separate from this evaluation. This player right here, to me, is an absolutely elite stud player. And I'm going to pull up some basketball stuff here. Bear with me because I don't got Pete to produce. So give me a second here. There we go. Let's watch this guy on the basketball court real quick. Jasen Lopez, they call him J-Rock. Boom. Yeah, from those who've watched him play basketball, the thing you hear a lot is just his let me full screen this. The thing you hear a lot about is his level scoring ability. This guy can handle. He can shoot. I mean, look at that pass, getting out of trouble there, and he can dunk. There you see the pull up jumper. This guy's a real hooper. Look at him playing defense. I've seen him dunk. I hopefully see him dunk here in the half court. I've seen him put down dunks in the half court. There, he lays that one up. But he does have some hops as well. Strong. There, you see how he's not a skinny guy at all. You can see why he's breaking so many tackles on the football field. But I mean, this is high level stuff. I think honestly, Pete loves to talk Miami hoops, and I love to talk about this guy on the hoops team as well. I think this guy'd be an outstanding addition to the team, if only just for giving our guys work and practice, because he's so tough as a football player. But look at this, man. This is a real hooper with real offers and a real skill set. I think one of the concerns that, maybe you heard about initially, look at that step back, with him in the basketball court is that he's a point guard. So missing time as a point guard to play football, you're not getting the full experience as like the quarterback of the offense of the team in basketball, because the point guard is really the quarterback. So it's like your quarterback kind of missing to play baseball in the spring or something like that, like Kenny Kelly used to do. So I can see how that's a problem. But I mean, his talent, I think, is there. And certainly in practice, I think just the level of physicality and competitiveness that he's going to bring is going to overall elevate the room. And then who knows, man, maybe this guy's a Charlie Ward. I'm not saying he is Charlie Ward. Charlie Ward played in the National Basketball Association and was one of the best college football players in the country. But I mean, who knows until you give him a chance. All I know is that this guy has been dominating competition since he was a kid. So that's what I want to see. Rockstyle saying, are we out on Wingo? I never got the real great sense on Wingo that he was, this is my read. No, it was not told to me directly. So I'm not putting words in the coach's mouths, but I didn't get a sense he was a major priority. Keys, yes. Russell, yes. Jasen Lopez, yes. Tyron Evans, who we talked about on prior shows, who I think is going to end up committing to Miami, yes. Wingo, I never got the same feel for. So I don't know. Johnny Lagoon asked, an important question, is he Cuban or what? I'm doing some digging, believe me. This has been at the forefront of my mind. We got to claim this guy. We can claim Restrepo. Restrepo is actually Colombian. So this would be and Barrios is Puerto Rican. So this would be a huge win for the Peoples here. Rockstyle Monster. I feel like Teddy Bridgewater, coach at Northwestern, former great quarterback for Louisville and Northwestern, wants his players to go anywhere but Miami. I don't think so. I mean, Jordan Campbell, the linebackers going to Miami. James Johnson was visiting Texas this weekend. I don't think there's a Bridgewater thing. I think it's a business of college football thing. James Johnson was leaning, as last I heard, leaning pretty strong to Miami. Texas could always take up the temperature and mix that one up. That's a realistic possibility always. But I mean, I don't get that sense at all about Bridgewater that he's trying to steer people away. I don't think he's trying to steer people towards. I think they kind of just go where they go. Lord Baconton, you think we get Lopez now with the basketball scholarship? I do, just because, man, we really, really want this guy. Mario loves loves Jasen Lopez. I'm sure Mario remembers the Restrepo experience. And Restrepo was, one thing I've heard people say like, oh, we haven't had a number one receiver in a while, all that. We haven't had a number one receiver for the pros in a while, which we need. We need to have those first rounders in the pros. We need those guys shaking Commissioner Goodell's hand, number one for perception. So the next Jeremiah Smith picks us and all that. But forgetting number one in the pros. In college, we did have a number one, and his name was Xavier Restrepo. He was a first-team All-America. He had insane numbers. He had over 16 yards a catch, and every time we needed a big play, they went to him. And the other team knew he was getting the ball, and he still got it. That, to me, is a number one receiver. I mean, he was explosive, 16-plus yards a catch. He was consistent. He could not be stopped when you knew he was getting the ball, and he was that guy for us, first-team All-America. So, to me, we did have a number one receiver with Restrepo. I've heard that dialogue. I disagree with it. We do need a guy for the pros, like a first-round pick type guy, just for the brand. So LSU and Ohio State can't negative recruit us on that. But I do think Restrepo is number one receiver. I say that to say, if you're Cristobal, you want that. Again, Cam Moore's the player we're going to miss the most this year, although we have a pretty good replacement in Carson Beck. Restrepo's the player I think we're going to miss the most in terms of like the gap between him and his replacement. So we'll see where that one goes. But I think Cristobal wants that again, and he sees certain qualities of that with Lopez. Again, with additional things that we've talked about there. Restrepo did not average 25 points in basketball. He didn't have that level of skill on the basketball court, and that translates to football as well, particularly I think with the contested catch part of the game. Kevin Dennis, what about Hezzy Kent? I think Texas is making a good run there. I think there's a lot of local pressure to go to Florida. Miami's been recruiting him hard, though. They'll keep recruiting him hard, so that's going to keep working. He's saying, I don't see that he's a decent basketball player, definitely not NBA level. Yeah, I'm not saying Jasen Lopez is going to play in the NBA. I think NFL is probably going to be his better bet. I'm just saying, don't put ceilings on guys. I've learned, you let them, when you're dominating at every level, and like every year who's dominant at True North, both sports, dominant at Chaminade, both sports, and I don't use that term loosely. 1,300 yards at Chaminade is dominating. 25 points per game in high school, man, dominating. So you saw that clip I was posting earlier, that was a 40-point game against good competition, a travel ball. So if a guy always dominates, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt until they stop dominating. Now, again, would I be shocked if he's playing NBA? I probably, especially playing football at the same time. But who's to say he can't be a good player in the ACC in basketball? He has ACC offers. NC State wants him to play basketball. Florida State wants to play basketball. Now Miami has offered him to play basketball. So we got to get this guy in the boat. I think he's, to me, like if you ask me, like, I'm not saying these are the best guys, but you're asking like my favorite guys, like the guys, Jackson Campbell's the number one player in the country. I don't need to tell you too much about him, right? Some other guys. But if you ask me like my favorite guys in the class, Derek Cooper, 5-star player. And first of all, not in the class. You got to get him. There's still big-time schools coming after him, but I think we can get that done. As far as like my favorite guys, Joel Irvin, Jasen Lopez. Who else do we got? Jalen Waters, pretty good one. So we got some guys that when you look at their profiles, all the pieces seem to fit for them to be highly successful. The athletic part with Lopez, the athletic instincts part on the field, the work ethic off the field to be able to perform in two sports, including two positions that are highly skill dependent. And he's not a huge guy, so he's really got to work on his skills constantly. And he's able to do that effectively. And then the fact that receiver, I think basketball and just being that kind of diligent worker translates to that position more than any other position. Plus he's got the footwork to get open. So all the pieces for him to be a 1,000-yard receiver. A lot of talk about LSU's class. It's a few comments. So David Dutko mentioned Brian Kelly, LSU's coach, has a lot of pressure to win this year. If they struggle, their class could fall apart. Similar comment from Kevin Dennis. I agree with that. And by the way, we got 10,000 on like and subscribe. Sorry, I wish we had 10,000. We have 1,000 on like and subscribe to the podcast. Appreciate you guys here joining us on this beautiful Saturday morning here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. But to me, with LSU's kind of like USC, kind of like some other schools that if things go sideways on them this year, who knows what could happen. Tennessee, I don't think would go through a change, like as far as like Heupel's their guy. But, Tennessee could have a pretty rough season. We talked about it last show. Joey Aguilar, their quarterback, that's not the recipe for success in the SEC, and they lost a lot to the draft. So, some of these teams are a little vulnerable to having really rough seasons. Like, I'll say FSU type rough, but very upset fan bases. LSU is going to be a good team. I'd be shocked if they weren't. USC could be pretty bad, could be decent, could be good. Tennessee could be pretty bad. LSU could be good, but if they don't make the playoffs, it's going to be the same kind of reaction. They had Nussmeier coming back. They have some great receivers coming back. They went and got Barry Brown from Kentucky, went and got Nick Anderson from Oklahoma. They invested big time on their interior offensive line, picked up a center from LSU, picked up a really good guard from Northwestern. They went and got Patrick Payton from FSU, who underachieved for FSU, but will receive better coaching at LSU. They got Jack Pyburn from Florida. Again, I keep saying this. Florida lost a ton of guys to real schools. No one's talking about that. Florida did nothing in the portal and lost a lot. But anyway, Jack Pyburn, big time addition from their standpoint there. They got Harold Perkins coming back at linebacker. They got some other guys coming back on the defensive side of the ball. Got Jakeem Jackson, another Florida departure who's starting for a school that was better than Florida. So that's something to keep an eye on. DJ Pickett's going to do well in their secondary. They won the A.J. Halsey sweepstakes. Remember that whole battle with Miami and LSU. We ended with Jacoby Thomas from Tennessee. So they've spent a lot of money on players. And if they don't do well, I think there could be some pressure on Brian Kelly, and that could free up some of the players that they were battling them for. Hassan Chieb, do you think Miami still leads for Cooper? Yes, I do. Jimmy Son, let's go. Bringing it tight, Canes fan. I'm glad you said that. Bringing it tight. Got to bring it tight. And when I'm talking about bringing it tight, I'm talking about CanesConnection.com/CIS. That's CanesConnection.com/CIS. Recently did a private Zoom for the Canes Connection members. Try to give them exclusive information and answer questions I cannot answer on this show just because it's sensitive information for public domain. But you get that if you join CanesConnection.com. Remember, use /CIS, get exclusive deals for CanesInSight members, exclusive benefits, different levels, but all this supports. We've got Canes Connection or CanesInSight fans at all of these levels who are supporting the program, who are part of the NIL, part of something that's impacting the results on the field, not just talking about it, being about it, and doing something that helps, doing something that, is not just like, maybe an extra liquor bottle at the tailgate. This is something that is going to impact the product that you watch when you go through the gates and onto the field and sit in your seats and watch these guys. So please think about supporting Canes Connection. We all use this. Everybody's got their own financial things we all got to work through. But if you're spending money on the Canes, spend money on the Canes football team that's on the field that you're watching. And that's CanesConnection.com/CIS. Be part of the solution. Let's bring it in tight. Question from Yukin God on Devin Jackson. I think Devin Jackson, my top of the board type target. Will Harris has a big relationship with him from his time as a Florida commit. Florida's in the mix. One thing I've heard Oregon say that they're going to put the pressure on Devin Jackson if they don't get Joey O'Brien, really tall, talented corner from really where I'm at now in Pennsylvania. He just committed to Notre Dame yesterday. Big time, tall, like a Kyle Hamilton type safety. Oregon wanted him. So what Oregon's saying, at least what their mods are saying, is that now that they lost O'Brien, they're going to really put the full court press on Jackson. And Oregon's got a lot of money, so that means paying and all these kind of things. So you got to respect that as an opponent. But Miami has that long-standing relationship with Will Harris and Devin Jackson from when he was a Florida commit. Florida's still trying to get in on Devin Jackson. We brought him in the spring. We did a lot of stuff with Devin Jackson. So we'll see. We'll see how that one goes. China Lagoon, shout out to Norm from Canes Connection. Yeah, shout out to Norm. Norm's the man. He also helps us set up those Storm Sessions interviews, which you haven't seen those Storm Sessions on the official Miami Hurricanes channel, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Check out my interviews with Cam Ward. Who else we got on there? We just did Markel Bell. I'm just thinking of guys on the current team. Wesley Basaint is going to be dropping next week. So check out Storm Sessions, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, the official Miami YouTube for the Hurricanes. I do that directly with the school. And shout out to Norm from Canes Connections to help set up all those interviews. And smash that like button, guys. Appreciate you. Devin Jackson saying, another question, Devin Jackson. Yeah, I mean, I think, again, he's someone that Miami has at the top of their board. So let's see what we got here. Nick Canino, what's up with that guy on X fighting you saying you never talked about Jasen Lopez? Clearly he's never seen the show. I don't know. I guess, again, there's some people that they're like conspiracy theorists. They're like, oh, you're talking about this guy because there's bad news on some other guys. We've been talking about Jasen Lopez the whole time. Those of you guys who listen to the show know that's the case. We did a whole show on him in February and continue to talk about him. I've been saying, in my opinion, he's the best receiver in South Florida since that Under Armour camp when I saw all the best receivers in South Florida. So, I don't know what more we can say. Getting Jasen Lopez does not mean you don't have to worry about getting a Keys or a Russell. Those are two unrelated things. But this guy's a big-time player, and we're talking about him a lot because guess what? He's on campus right now. So, and we just offered him in basketball. That's why we're talking about him. But we've been talking about him, as those listens to the show know. So, yeah, that was a weird one. But I mean, you get to that weird stuff sometimes on X. So, I mean, Nick, but yeah, I saw you comment on there. I appreciate that. As of course you watch the show, so you know how we get down. And I got guys I like. I got guys that I talk about more than others. The Money and Flow are the biggest Lopez fans for backing up. Thank you. I mean, listen, he could stink, and I'll have to own that. That's part of doing the show on a recorded show. You guys know what I'm saying. I can't hide from it. I'm talking to you right now. There's a red button on, so you're all seeing it. But we'll see if it does well. If he doesn't do well, but that's my guy, Jasen Lopez, and it's not because he's Hispanic. I remember, like, with Restrepo. Remember that similar crowd. It might have been the same guy I was talking on X. I remember when I used to talk up Restrepo before Cam Ward got here. It was like, oh, you're talking about him because he's Hispanic. He only gets passes because he's TVD's roommate or whatever it was. First team All-America banner in the stands. And then it was Mendoza. When I said, hey, man, I think this guy'd be a good guy to target in the portal. He's got a lot of talent. They're like, oh, you're just saying that. He's Emory Williams with more pork in his diet. Well, I'm seeing now NFL buzz on Fernando Mendoza. We'll see where that goes. Happy with Carson Beck, another guy we talked about early. But, so I have been accused of Hispanic bias, but it's really not. I just think this guy's a hell of a player. And I have bias towards multi-sport athletes and guys that have elite kind of athletic intangibles at wide receiver. Malachi Toney, elite athletic intangibles, which is why I think he's going to be a complete superstar. Restrepo, obviously, elite athletic intangibles at that position. Osborne, Dorsett, Hearns. That's my kind of guy receiver. That's what I like. Jeremiah Smith had that, plus being a superhuman, which is why he's the best ever. Andre Johnson, same thing. He had all those same intangibles, plus he's a superhuman. So, Hall of Fame. So that's kind of what I look for at receivers, is very much intangible. And do you just have that the instincts and the athleticism, maybe from basketball or some other way to track the ball, to get open and catch it? Sounds simple, but sometimes we overthink it. Anthony Manzano, is it feasible to get Russell and Keys and the receiver from Tennessee, Tyron Evans? Yeah, I mean, they're going to try to do that. So they're going to try. Birdstone, my guy, the villain. Shout out to the villain. Shout out to Street. Shout out to that whole team. Saying Jay Lamar, eyeball emoji, and devil horn. So I posted this in the bank. It's an interesting situation with Jay Lamar, the running back out of Moultrie, Colquitt County, Georgia. Elite player. One of my favorite guys as far as just like talent, running the ball, unreal. Miami has a commitment from Javion Mallory from West Boca. Javion Mallory is on campus right now, visiting, official. Very good player, local. He visited Alabama last week. I don't think Miami loved that he visited Alabama last week. Jay Lamar visited Miami that week. Sensational visit. He was hosted by Kamal Bonner, Miami's newest linebacker transfer from NC State, also from Colquitt County. Nikar, who was not in town that weekend, but is obviously a Miami Hurricane. He's from Colquitt County. Small area. They all know each other. They're all kin. So a lot of ties with Jay Lamar in Miami, even though he's from Georgia. He's scheduled to visit Georgia this weekend. Obviously, that's something you always monitor. But significant interest from Jay Lamar to Miami. And Miami's not going to just say, hey, Mallory, you committed to us way back when. We're going to just honor that commitment when you're visiting other schools. Now, they like Mallory. Mallory's good. So, that's the other part of it. Mallory's a good player. It's like, hey, Mallory, we don't like you. We're just going to drop you because we think you stink. That's not the case either. So, balancing act at running back. Things I do know. I know that Derek Cooper has a spot no matter what, and I feel good about that one getting done. We'll see. big-time recruitment. There's always ups and downs, but Miami's done good work there, good fit, and he's top of the board type player. Miami likes Javian Mallory, the player, and the kid, too. I mean, it's not like a character thing, just visiting other schools. You don't love that. And then Miami loves Jay Lamar and what he can do running the ball. So I know Derek Cooper has a chance to be in the class no matter what. These other guys, we'll see. If I had a bet, Birdstone, I might bet on Jay Lamar being that second back. And if that's the case, you're talking about some explosive dudes, man. That would be huge because Jay Lamar, top 10 running back in the country, big time talent. Liquid Enigma, no Islas Canarias in Miami, in Philly. Yeah, I'm struggling, man. It's breakfast time. My wife just brought some breakfast from the continental breakfast here, but I wish she was bringing up some Islas Canarias Cuban Express. 40-plus years serving Miami, right there in the Dayland Mall Dining Pavilion. Got 7 different types of croquetas. You got, look at these tostones, man, with vaca frita on top, picadillo. They even got the vegan options, too, for your boy. So they got all kinds of things, pastries, tequeños, which is actually Venezuelan, but they're still giving the people what they want. You got the bowls, kids' items. Look at the beverage. The beverage list alone is off the charts, and you got Materva. You got all kinds of classic kind of Cuban sodas. You got some iron beer. You got all kinds of stuff there, plus, Cuban coffee, traditional coffee. Then you got the Croqueta County t-shirt and hat, which you've seen me rock on many shows. So shout out to Islas Canarias, the Andrade family, best Cuban food on planet Earth, bar none, hands down. All right, what do we got here? Or questions. Hassan saying, I'm here the staff for my visitor. I might get to visit again. So I haven't really talked about this because I haven't gotten an update. I've been out here. Let me check my phone. Make sure I didn't miss anything. So, they thought he was going to visit this weekend. Van Spafford, the receiver out of Orange County. I think Miami thought he was coming here to flip. Georgia thought he was coming here to flip, where he's committed right now, where he visited last week. Kind of the business of college football getting involved. He also says he's sick, so he wants to go to a 5-star challenge and not lose his energy. I mean, we'll see on that. But I know Miami really wants Van Spafford. I know there's been significant interest in the past. He said Miami visit was his best visit during the unofficial season, said that publicly. So we'll see how that one plays out. But yeah, I think that's something Miami's not going to give up until they have to, because they love Van Spafford. He's a really, really good player. Joaquin Del Cueto saying, let the student athletes unionize and get legal representation as well as collective bargaining. Yeah, I mean, you can't treat them like employees for these contracts and then say they're not employees. But yeah, it's pay for play, but it's not pay for play. Wisconsin's talking of all sides of their mouth. So that one, that's why I think that's such an interesting situation. Appreciate you, Vaughn. Yeah, we got over 1,200 on right now for the 52-minute mark. So we're rocking here. What's going on, linebacker from D? Well, you got a commitment from Jordan Campbell, who looks like he's solid. Linebacker from Northwestern. Originally, he was at Carroll City before. I think he was at Broward before. He's bounced around a little bit, but a really, really good player. I liked, meeting him, talking to him. We talked to him at the camp last year, the Under Armour camp for when he was a rising junior. And then I saw him as an official visit to Miami, man. He's got a lot bigger. He was already big. Like, he's a long, he has the right body type, but he's filling out. He looks like he's ready to play as a freshman. Fast, productive. He played well in the Under Armour game as an underclassman. This is the All-America game where they now invite underclassmen. Cantwell was out there last year, and he played in that game, made a tackle in the deep red zone that was really impressive. So love Jordan Campbell from Northwestern. He's a solid commit. That's one. J.J. Edwards from Rutgers. Super fast, 4.57, 6'1", 194. So he's a little light right now. That was a spring weigh-in, but I think he'll get up probably to that 205, 210-pound range pretty quick. I know they saw him on his official visit and liked him from how he looked. So they're expecting him to grow. And then the speed is, when you're running 4.57 laser at 6'1" in high school, you can really go. So he had a really good spring too. His spring highlights, we played him the other day on the show. Really, really impressive. This is from the linebacker from Orlando Edgewater. He's committed to Rutgers. I don't think that commitment to Rutgers lasts. I think he ends up being a Cane. So keep an eye on J.J. Edwards. Canes Cat screaming for baseball info here. I think Miami's in pursuit of a lot of things. Miami's certainly in pursuit of a stud catcher. So, I know a player named Alex Sosa, who started off at Belen Jesuit Prep School, the best school in Miami, best school in Florida probably. He started at Belen Jesuit in Miami. Then he moved up to Vieira, Florida, I believe. And then he went to North Carolina State, where he was one of the best catchers in the ACC, left-handed hitter, had 10 home runs this year. I believe he batted cleanup, or he was a very, very prominent part of the NC State lineup. He entered the transfer portal. Miami needs a catcher. That fit makes sense. I mean, we'll see how it develops, but I know Miami needs a catcher, and that caught my eye, knowing that he's a Belen guy and knowing that he's one of the better players in the portal. I think Baseball America said he was like a top 100 type prospect for next year. So, meaning for the draft. So that one seems to make sense. But I know Miami's going to keep working for bats. Miami finished second to last in the ACC in a run. So even though they had a great season and had great chemistry and were a great team in terms of results, Miami Standard's a great team as Omaha. But I mean, in terms of if you were trying to project the season from the beginning of the year, great results, but you didn't hit very well outside of Cuvée. And if Cuvée would have gotten hurt for an extended period of time, I mean, it would have been over. So I think upgrading the floor of the offense is huge. You got Brylan West at first base from FIU, on-base machine, big guy, has power. I think you've upgraded your physicality at that position, which we were small there for too long at first base. He gets you bigger, plus he can hit and he gets on base. Sean Copeland, third baseman, first baseman for Miami-Dade, hit 15 home runs in Miami-Dade, which is a hard place to hit home runs. He's left-handed. I heard he's a potential prospect down the road. So that's a guy they're excited about. He can play first. He can DH. And, of course, you added Vance Shahan, the middle infielder from USC Upstate. He's in the Cape right now, balling. Alex Sosa, who I mentioned, is also in the Cape. Of course, Daniel Cuvée in the Cape. Cape Cod League, best place for college baseball players in the summer to play with a wood bat. But Shahan hit crushed a home run with wood bat up there. He looks like he's going to be a big-time player. He'll have I think the expectation is he gets to Miami. I know we had Randall Diaz locked up last year from Indiana State, who ended up getting drafted and going to the draft. That hurt our infield last year. But I think Shahan more likely to go to Miami, even though he is ultimately going to be some guy that plays pro. Trig asking, what's up with Bryce Fitzgerald? I know he arrived late. This is the defensive back from Columbus. I've heard he's looked awesome. He's a great athlete, man. This is his time to shine. He moves great. I think he can move like a corner. I think his ball skills speak for themselves. He's been one of the biggest ball hawks in South Florida, one of the best punt returners and kick returners in the state. Also was a state championship basketball player at Belen Jesuit. I just mentioned that for Alex Sosa, best high school in Florida. They transferred to Columbus, I think, just for the football. Won state championships at Columbus. They got a great football program, and obviously a great basketball program as well. I can't lie, Columbus is rolling athletically. But anyways, he won a state championship basketball for Belen, played a significant role in that team as a guard, goes to Columbus, wins the state title on the football field, offense, defense, special teams. Then he goes on the track team, and he wins the state championship 4x1. And I believe his PR was like a 10-8 this year, something like that, maybe 10-7, maybe even faster. Let me pull up Bryce Fitzgerald's PR. He had a wind-aided run that was outstanding. But he's, legitimate 4.4 guy. He ran 4.4 on the lasers at the Under Armour camp. Okay, so his PR 10.68 and a 21.9. That was wind aided on the 10.68, but he ran 10.8 without wind aid. So the guy's flies at 4.4 verified on the laser. So he's legit. Hassan, who's the tight end that Gabby put predictions out for Miami? Let me see what Gabby's saying. But, guys that I've talked about, like on the bank, that I think Miami's in great shape for. Izzy Briggs, top 10 tight end in the country from California, out there in the rural part of California. Small school competition, but really athletic, talented, did good 7-on-7, played every position for him out there. He was visiting LSU last week, visited Miami the week after. It's going to be a Miami-LSU battle. I like Miami to win that battle. That'd be a guy that I watch, Izzy Briggs, to commit to Miami. That'd be a top 10 tight end in the country. And a guy that Miami really loves, and I personally really love, Zachary Turner, tight end out of Duncanville, Texas. I think he's a 3-star player. Just visited SMU. He's from Dallas. Duncanville's where Keelan Russell went, the quarterback that went to Bama, 5-star Decorian Moore, who went to Oregon. This guy was one of the best players on that team last year, Zachary Turner. He's a guy that teams talk about all the time like when they play Duncanville. Opposing coaches, Miami's gotten some intel on Zachary Turner, and like he's one of those guys that's like the real players know, the real coach and the coaches know, and people say this is the guy down here, Texas. He's super productive, 6'2", 233, more of that Lofton type body, not as like running back thick, but strong. Probably more of a receiver. He's very fast. Lofton's a receiver too, but this guy like it runs away from teams in Texas. Miami loves him. He visited Miami, visited SMU. There was some people thought that maybe he goes to SMU because it's the local school, but Miami's picking up steam there. So watch Zachary Turner along with Briggs, who I think will commit to Miami next week. I believe his commitment's on Tuesday, and he's a top 10 player in the country. James Walford, how can Wisconsin claim contractual benefits of an NIL deal with the player? I thought the NIL was for the player only. So what was this is you're getting to the farce of it, right? You're obviously picking up the lie that Wisconsin's telling and catching it. So shout out to you, James, which is, NIL really what it is, I mean, let's not like we know what NIL is. Wisconsin, by paying Lucas NIL, in theory, and this is what they're going to say is, well, we got to benefit from him, selling jerseys or doing commercials for us. The benefit that the University of Wisconsin gets by directly paying Xavier Lucas for NIL is that he plays football for him and covers guys. I mean, let's be real about the whole situation. So they got to kind of lie and say, well, we had an NIL benefit from Lucas, separate from him helping us win football games. It's, his sparkling personality and commercials. And I'm sure the guy's a great guy. I've only heard great things about him personally, but, we're not talking about Tiger Woods. We're not talking about Michael Jordan. We're not talking about, who else sells a lot of commercials, Caitlin Clark. This is not like somebody who has that kind of name to make money from like those guys have that kind of impact financially. He doesn't. So they have to say that he like they have to treat him like that from a damages standpoint, even though really what it's about is pay for play, which they're saying is not happening because they're saying the players aren't employees. So that's the fine line they have to walk, and it's all a farce. It's not true. So that's the issue with this whole lawsuit. Almost over 1,300 on here on a Saturday morning. Like and subscribe to the show, guys. Appreciate everybody joining us. Johnny Lagoon saying, I think it's going to be Devin Jackson and Blake Stewart at safety, man. Your lips to God's ear. That's what we want. That would be an A1 safety class. Big schools after all these guys, Michigan and Clemson for Blake Stewart. He's at Michigan this weekend. Miami battling Clemson for the Atlanta product. Love Blake Stewart. Another one of my favorite guys in this class. I put Blake Stewart in that category. I just like those guys. You don't have to worry about the intangible stuff that he's like, he's going to work hard. He's going to be smart. He's very athletic. He's very versatile. He has good instincts, physical. Like, what else do you want? Like Michigan and Clemson, the reason they get so many of those kind of lower 4-star guys that go to the first round of the draft is because they prioritize, hey, no BS with Wisconsin players, no BS with Michigan players. They're there to work hard, play football, learn the defense or the offense, be smart, make plays. No nonsense. And maybe it's a product of me having to watch Miami quarterbacks get suspended every year, from Kevin Olson to a Marv to Jaron Williams, and all kinds of goofy stuff with other positions. I'm over worrying about players and what they do. I want guys that I know are going to take care of business. Michigan's like that. Clemson's like that. That's why those guys have success finding players, evaluating, I think, more than anything. Of course, they have to have the athletic ability as well. But I think Blake Stewart's in that category. The fact that Michigan and Clemson are battling Miami, that's the company you want to be in. Devin Jackson, national recruit, Oregon, Florida, Miami, a lot of big schools after him. Super traitsy player, tested off the charts at Under Armour. Really good film too. Played with some receiver in spring. Big guy. If you get those two, you're feeling great about what's going on at the position. See what we got else here. Star Florida. If we're slipping on Russell, can we afford to slip on Keys as well? I think we got to get one of those guys. I mean, there's no question. We got to get one of those guys. I think Keys is the best. Like, I think Keys to me, of the guys that I think are true 5-stars, I would put Keys in that category. Keys to me is a true 5-star. Physically, I don't worry about him. He likes the spotlight, but no off the field stuff there. Smart guy, super productive, plays multiple sports, runs after the catch, runs down the field, runs routes, went to the Under Armour involved at the All-America game against upperclassmen. But to me, Keys 5-star, I feel great about. Russell, I put more in that JoJo Trader category, where if he can get stronger physically He's got a lot of talent. I heard he's a really good kid, very good athlete, obviously another two-sport guy. So I would put Russell in a different category than Keys. I put Keys in that 5-star. I put Russell in a solid 4-star. I don't think Keys is Jeremiah Smith, so don't take that part of this. But I would say Keys is more similar to like the Jeremiah Smith, whereas Russell would be more similar to like the JoJo Trader. Where JoJo Trader, if he gains the weight, a lot of tools, a lot of talent, could be a really good player. And whereas like a Jeremiah Smith, like you could put him in a cryogenic freezing, as long as he doesn't get hurt or kidnapped, he's going to be the best receiver in the country stepping on the field. So again, Keys is not Jeremiah Smith. But I think in terms of like this class, Keys is the 5-star. And I'd say Russell's the 4-star. And I put Lopez also in that 4-star category. Different than Russell. I think a higher floor than Russell, maybe a lower ceiling. Because if Russell gets strong and really hones in on receiver, he can be really, really good. Kevin Dennis asking, summer workout update. I appreciate your support. Appreciate you always, man, bringing it on the show. Asking about Brock Schott. So Brock Schott, first of all, we're talking about some workouts. This guy's a workout warrior. He loves to work out. I remember I was at practice in spring. I was standing next to his dad. And I'm like, how's Brock like in Miami? What's he up to? And his dad was like, well, he didn't really talk much, man. He just loves to work out. That was basically his comment. So shout out to Mr. Schott. But that, this guy's locked in. He's about the work. And you can tell by looking at him, man, he's strong. What stood out to me from Brock Schott in the spring and just talking to people about how he's progressing. First of all, there's excitement that he could play early, number one. Curious to see how he works with Beck. Beck likes guys like that. He had some guys like that at Georgia. With Brock Schott, tight end from Indiana, true freshman. He's probably 6'3", 6'2.5", 6'3", maybe 6'3". He's not that short. And he's strong physically, just like a jacked up dude. The thing that jumps out to me with him is his speed. His speed is real. He's legitimately, I think he tested in the 4.5s. That's how he looks. He can run. You can send him down the field and he's like a receiver. He is really fast. That translated. And that continues with the workouts and everything else. I would say the key for Brock Schott, two things. He's probably faster than he is quick. He's quick. His shuttles and stuff are really good too, but he's not like the most polished route runner at this stage because it's Indiana. Like you look at Jasen Lopez, we're talking about his routes. He has to get open against Miami DBs, South Broward DBs. Schott's in a different type of football, so he didn't have to perfect his routes the same way. He also was a multi-sport guy, played basketball, played defense, did everything out there. So I think route development for Schott is going to be big. And then also like hands. He has hands. He just will drop some. I think, he's thinking he's trying to get a field. He had some pretty big drops in spring, freshman type stuff. Not like, hey, this guy can't catch stuff. I think just more freshman concentration stuff. But the guy works super hard, strong, tough. I think you see him on special teams for sure. And I want to emphasize this, fast. Miami fast. Not Indiana fast. Miami fast. So shout out to Brock Schott. Looking forward to watching him. By the way, Luka Gilbert. Don't sleep on Luka Gilbert, the other tight end. 6'7", legit. He's going to be a big boy. He's got big legs. He's still kind of thin on the upper body, but he'll be I think he'll probably be like a 260-pounder if he's not already. Tough, knows how to block. He blocked in high school. He played high level. So Brock was at a smaller school. Luka Gilbert was at a Cincinnati private school. Those guys, I don't know if it's a private school. He's at a big Cincinnati school that plays real comp. So he's coming in pretty polished in that respect as far as a blocker. Receiving, he actually is very smooth and coordinated for being a 6'7". He can run routes. He has good hands. He catches it away from his body. Just very smooth and coordinated that way. He's not stiff at all. He didn't have Brock Schott's speed and just twitch. If he did, he'd be the best tight end in the country because he's got a lot of other stuff. He's probably more laboring than your classic receiving tight end, but he can catch. So I think with Gilbert, you're going to see a guy that plays a lot. He does some of the McCormick stuff, but he also is going to give you more as a receiver because he's bigger, longer than McCormick, and he has just more of a catch radius to him. He can go back and get the ball when it's thrown behind him. He can adjust to it. Again, he catches everything with his hands. He can go get it contested. He's got a really good skill to him. Mazzano, the comparison I've always had for Brock is Winslow Jr. Man, that'd be a huge outcome. Winslow Jr., he was obviously Kellen Winslow too. We know the off the field stuff has kind of clouded that for obvious reasons, but on the field, he was pretty special. I hesitate to compare too many people to Kellen Winslow. The one guy I have compared to Kellen Winslow, and I wouldn't do it with Brock Schott necessarily, but someone I do think reminds me of him a little bit is an Elijah Arroyo. That one reminds me more of a Kellen Winslow too. I don't think he's as far along. If Winslow would have been an all-pro every year if he wasn't a maniac. You know, he hurt his leg like on an ATV. He got caught, you know, with all kinds of the weird stuff before he even got into this other weird stuff. So if he had his head on straight, I think he would have been Hall of Fame. So I wouldn't say Brock Shots there. Maybe not, at least not yet. Arroyo, there are some similarities that I see. Eddie Delva, how tall is Elijah Lofton really? I'd say he's probably 6'1", 245, 240. He reminds, like I always say, Elijah Lofton is more of a running back when it's all said and done. He can run. He can run with the ball. We haven't seen it a ton. He had 2 carries last year. One was a 1-yard touchdown at fullback. The other was a 30-yard run on a fake punt. So those were his 2 carries. Pretty good carries. Touchdown and 30-yard run. But, you know, I've seen him more in practice, full contact practices. Hasn't done it in public yet. So we'll see on that. I think once people see him run at length, they'll see what I'm saying a little more. But I think Elijah Lofton ultimately, and this year you have Marty Brown, you have Mark Fletcher, you have Jordan Lyle, you have Jared Pringle. So I think Chris Wheatley-Humphrey's going to do some stuff too. So you have running backs. You don't need necessarily a running back right now. Probably need a more tight end. But I do think Lofton at 6'1", 240, he's like a prototypical all-purpose back, fullback running back, because he can run, he can lead block. He can lead block just like those fullbacks you're seeing now come back into the NFL. San Francisco uses the fullback. Dolphins use a fullback. Ravens, kind of the more sophisticated offenses, use fullback. What's old is now new. Lofton, I think, can do all that stuff. Plus, he can run the ball better than those guys can. And he's like a legitimate receiver. He can run routes and catch balls one-handed. So a lot of stuff going on with Elijah Lofton. Canes Cat always bringing the basketball questions. And Mason Greenhouse and Gabriel Milano arrived on campus. I'll find out. I don't know about Greenhouse. I saw Milano walking around the Hecht. So pretty sure he's here. D saying, remember Jalen Samuels from NC State? That's Lofton. Yeah, Jalen Samuels. I believe he got drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let me pull up because I think that is a good comp. So Jalen Samuels, kind of an all-purpose guy at NC State, gets drafted 5th round by the Steelers. He has run for 468 yards and 1 touchdown in the NFL. He has caught 564 yards, and he's been out of the league for a couple of years. I don't think he got injured or what. He ended up playing 45 games. I can see the comp. Now, here's what I'll say. Lofton's like probably 15 pounds heavier than Samuels. And so I think what Lofton has that Samuels doesn't, and why I think Lofton ultimately has more upside is I think like when you have a 240-pounder that likes to block and has power, I mean, Lofton's also a weight room beast. Like I think he's the top power cleaner on the team, at least for size. He got a lot of that kind of stuff. So I think Lofton, just as a pure fullback, when you strip away the receiving, when you strip away the running, he can get it done in the NFL as a fullback, like a Ravens, Niners, Dolphins type fullback. Then you layer on top of that, he can run with the ball at a high level. I think he's like a legitimate ACC running back that can get 5 yards plus per carry here on high volume. Then you add on to the fact that he can make one-handed catches, he can run routes and all that. He's just a unique dude, man. I think Samuels is a good comp, but I think he will be a better player than Samuels. I think in terms of drafting, he'll get drafted closer to Deebo Samuel, who's what Cam Ward compared him to, than Jalen Samuels, who was a 5th-round pick. I think you're going to see Lofton, if he stays healthy, more of that 2nd-round type impact player who lasts a long time. But, we will see. All right, guys. I'm running out of press, so I gotta sign out. We got over 1,500 on a Saturday morning. Again, like and subscribe to the show. Appreciate everybody. But before we go, we got to talk about the best deal in town if you want to get your gear for the summer. That is the Miami Hurricane Team Store. You got the New Era hats with the flat bill. It's like my son. He always wears these hats with the sticker on it. He never takes a sticker off. I guess that's the new style. I'm just too old. I still bend that thing. Ed Reed and Sean Taylor jerseys. I mean, what's better than that? The 2001 throwbacks. All this stuff. You use promo code INSIGHT20 as you look at these new hats. Promo code INSIGHT20. You get 20% off your first item. That is promo code INSIGHT20. You can use that on MiamiHTS.com, which is the website. You can use it in the store right across the University of Miami. Just show up there and say say promo code CanesInSight, INSIGHT20. They got the button for CanesInSight there. So check out the Miami Hurricane Team Store. And by the way, shout out to my guy Manny. If you're listening, I did a event there for the Miami University of Miami Sports Medicine Institute, Student Leadership Day. A lot of great kids out there. My man Manny was working the front desk and is a big Canes fan, plays the euphonium for the band. So shout out to Manny. I hope you're hearing this. Keep on rocking, and we'll see you at the Notre Dame game. Shout out to Harry and Jaron for the team store. Shout out to all you 1,500 plus on the show. Like and subscribe. Probably be on tomorrow. Definitely going to be on every day next week. We got Pete back. Hopefully we'll fix him up. Go Canes.